This is Frixious. I'm just wanted to share with you guys a few tips that I've learned from producing over the months and over the years. More recently, actually, because I have learned a ton recently. Um, I am just using a condenser microphone and just wiring my speakers out, so the audio quality isn't the best, but you guys will get the idea. So here's something that I'm working on right now. You'll notice that it actually has, even though it doesn't have that many parts going on, it has a bunch of just stuff. And if we look over at the rack here, you can see that there's a bunch of stuff going on. And this is just something, actually, that was inspired by Funkcase, who is a dubstep producer and also produces in Reason. Essentially, what we have here is a just a line mixer with everything, like all the main parts in it. So we have all of our drums coming in through this, all of our basses, all of our mid synths, leads, extra, etc. And then each one of these are actually, you can see here, like the drums are plugged into a drums mastering suite. So I have total control, and I can master each one of these individually. And sometimes I use some of the presets. Usually I just use the default and tweak it that way. Then from there, these drums, for example, are then wired, as we can see here, down to the mixer for drums. And on the drums, I have every part of the drums separated. So I have my kick, my snares, my hats, my cymbals. And this way, it just makes it easier because even though the Kong is nice, and usually I don't use 16 different kick drums, I do use a few, and it just keeps it nice and organized so that I can go in and like EQ just kick drums and EQ just snares without having to get into a bunch of weird wiring stuff. Additionally, each one of these 14 to 2 mixers has all of this stuff on it that you'll see. So I have a RV7000 reverb and then 3 EQs along with envelope filters, and each one of these is for high, mids, and lows. And this is really handy because just for quick EQing or throwing on some reverb, they're all linked into these auxiliary plugs here, and I can just throw this up and put a ton of EQ or a ton of a reverb on it, or I can just put a little bit if I want some, or I can like really bring up the highs. You can just take a look here, and like just this little part is up, just the middle part is up, and just the low part is up. So, and that goes for all of these. So like these are the drums. You go down to the basses, and it's the same setup, the same EQs here with the dials in here. And then I have my sub and my lead bass. Each one of these has its own Thor with EQs on it, and each of these are the same as well. Has my everything else that you need in it, and it's really handy just for loading up. For example, if I just click new here, you'll see that my default rack is this. So it's really handy because right now I can just plug and play. Essentially, like if I just want to lead, I don't have to go through and create everything. I can just click on lead, and then like I can choose, because I usually stick with Maelstrom and Thor. So if I want to, I just flip this around and plug in Thor. Everything's ready to go. Boom. You can hear that it's already. And then I can go ahead and start sculpting everything, and I already have my EQs, stereo imagers, compressors, etc., etc., etc. Let's quit out of that. Now, as far as this song goes, especially with Deadmau5's most recent release, Suite Number 3, being extremely popular among his fans, I have a feeling that a lot of more orchestral things are going to be coming out of the mix. And so I went ahead and I was just playing around. Obviously, a total inspiration from Deadmau5, from his Suite Number 3. I was playing with some orchestral sounds with some leads going in. If we can just give that a quick listen. And my computer's going to be skipping a little bit because I am full maxing out. My processor's going insane right now. So you'll notice that well, I'll get into it. So there you go. Just as an intro thing with the orchestra, it's one thing that you might want to pay attention to is velocities. It makes it really much more natural sounding, because when you normally just draw in a note, it sets the velocity default to 100. And for example, if we just solo out the cello and make these 100 so that these are the same, you'll hear that it's kind of note, note. You know, it doesn't sound very natural to go from that and just bum, you know, like it when you're actually bowing a cello, you have like a velocity change. So if we, oh, there we go. So if we just set those back at 50 and listen to it, it kind of has that slower attack and much more natural bowing sound, and that goes for all the different instruments. And you might want to play with a few different velocities, and I did go through and change like almost all of these to make it sound fairly natural. I didn't totally go through it with a microscope, but I did spend a lot of time just on this intro part. Just as a side note, you'll notice that this song is actually only 60, 70-ish bars long. And that's because the tempo is actually at 64, and that is kind of coincidental. I wrote this intro for an orchestral thing for composition before, and just reused it for this because the one that I had written was never going to be used. So I was like, oh, let's just put it at 64. So actually everything in here is written kind of in double time, since 64 is obviously half of 128. Getting more into the next part, I got a text message. I don't know what that's about. Lost my train of thought. Oh, sorry. So getting into like this last little bit. Oh, it'd be nice if I didn't just have that solo. Let's go back a few bars. You'll notice that it kind of gets louder and more intense. And also that, and that comes from a Vengeance sound pack. They're great. I highly recommend getting them one way or another. And I have like just some delays on that and whatnot. But more to the other things, when you just listen to the lead by itself, that's just as simple. The filter's getting more, which adds intensity to it, and also gives it like an illusion that it's getting louder. And also a bunch of reverb to kind of give it that sustained feeling. Getting into this next part. Which doesn't really work with all the sounds not on it, so let's just go ahead and start back from the beginning. One thing that I have learned over the years is that when you have more parts going on, in general, it sounds more full. So if I didn't have those noises, and these noises right here that you're hearing, if I didn't have those in there, let's go back, and just muted them out. I don't know why it's still sounding. But right here, the sounds aren't going on. It sounds much less full. So if we unmute those. And also, something that I've noticed, and maybe it's just like a me thing, I never have like your typical snare pattern. It just, to me, adds more interest to it, instead of just I always have something going on that's changing, and usually I'll actually like write every one of these just so that it has some interest to it. It's little things, but you'll be amazed at how many little things that you do to really fill out a song. So then later on in here, the orchestra comes back, and to add some extra intensity, something that I did was add these pads here, which you can hear right here, which kind of have like a stringy sound to them, even though they're obviously not strings. And when you get right here and just listen to the strings, and then when you go over here where the pads come in, it adds just another layer, because those pads are really filling out all the middle parts of the sounds, especially when the big chord hits. And something else I did was add a chorus onto the lead, as well as bring the filter up. And then when we get back into the orchestra again, and because this isn't like going to become some big piece or anything, or at least I don't think it is, I basically essentially copied and pasted a Chopin prelude. It's not one of his more famous ones, so most people probably wouldn't recognize it. But it is his prelude in C minor. It's only 13 measures long, and this whole ending part is the exact prelude. But anyway, you can kind of hear that it's sounding kind of orchestra-y, and I did the same thing here that I did in the beginning, where I put different velocities everywhere to make it sound more natural. And then I brought these pads back in, and with that kind of wishy-washy sound, it makes it sound a lot more full, a lot more alive. And then, of course, I brought the main lead back in to sort of tie in everything. Especially with these pads, because they rise up. You hear the highs of the high filter, or the lack of the high filter, rather. But that's the basis of the song. I guess the things that I really wanted to share with you is mainly this rack that was inspired by Funkcase again. It really helps a lot because when I was first starting out and just writing pieces, I can't tell you how long it takes. I mean, it isn't really that long. It's maybe 30 or 45 seconds that you spend. But spending those 30 or 45 seconds every time you want to make a new instrument and make a new sound and everything, it really distracts you from the creative process, because like you're in your left brain and you're being creative and you're being spontaneous and really going at it, and then okay, I got to stop and I have to like make a new instance of a combinator and make a new line mixer, make a new Thor, make a new Maelstrom, make a new subtractor, make all the EQs and everything. And it really, because that totally takes you away from your creative process and puts you back in your left brain of analyzing everything. And the next thing you know, you're 2 hours later distracted and fixing just 4 bars because it doesn't sound just right. You really want to sort of create everything in one big swoop and then go back later and mix it and master it and fix all the little fine details. Or at least that's the way that I work best, and that's how I write in general. I wrote all this in about like 4 hours, and then a day or two later, after I had a break from it, came back and started fine-tuning everything, fixing all these velocities, fixing all the attacks on the violin, because that really changes it from that to just... Oh, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Why is that? Well, you get the idea. Instead of going, yeah, just bum, it doesn't work as well, obviously. So you fine-tune everything. And another piece of advice I can give you is put in just a bunch of little details. I mean, you're not, as Il Gates said in one of his talks, you're not going to start World War III by writing music. Even though this is very heavily inspired by Deadmau5, and some people may even say, like, oh, you just copied Deadmau5 and Chopin. It doesn't matter, because, I mean, nobody's suing me for it, and if they did, I'll just delete it and say, sorry, guys, because I'm not making any money off of it. But it was a really good learning experience. I learned a lot from writing this, and I learned a lot from writing other pieces, too. So just experiment and put in as many little details as you can. You know, just different, like, sound effects, different atmospheres. Something else that I learned that is actually really effective is to put in just white noise. Actually, I can show you really quick what I mean by that. Wherever I put it. It is this one. It's just little things, and it completely changes the sound of it all. Like, for example, in here, I'll just skip to here. I have this sound going on, and without the white noise, it's kind of repetitive. It's kind of, oh, let me also... It's repetitive, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but you get the idea. And then when we go in and put the noise back in and put the extra sounds in, oh, my computer's really hurting. Just that, you know, added just a little bit of interest because it's something different. You know, it's not just one sound with a kick drum going on. And the whole time I have this oh, you can't see my finger. This whole time I have this noise building up. And you hear it starting to build up here. And the second noise comes in. That so it really helps. And of course these sounds are kind of annoying sometimes to handle with because they are loops that last like 14 or 15 seconds long, and you have to listen to the whole thing unless you change it on like the gate or whatever. What else can I talk about? Yeah, like I said, just add in a bunch of little details. They really make all the difference, and just experiment. Actually, one of my favorite things that I wrote, like, because I like I said, I use a lot of Thor, and I would use just a lot of like analog oscillators, and then a lot of just multi oscillators. You know, just three, you know, very standard, and then almost no routing down here. But I've learned that routing is actually a lot of fun and can really change the sound. And I started using the other oscillators, and I've started to really like the sounds that I get from them. And just simple routing, like right here, instead of having the formant filter go straight to filter 3, I have it being filtered through the first filter at 100%. But I usually change that like down to here so that you can kind of get a formant feel without it making it so formant-y. I know I have some other stuff in here. I'll have a mouse from here. I thought I had another. Well, at any rate, yeah, routing can really change sounds. What did I work on that had that? Oh, that's what it was. Let me, oops, get out of here. Let me open something else I was working on. Sorry, it's only take a second. Another thing that's really useful is to organize all of this. I made a project folder just for all of these, and a folder for each one because some of them I work on in both Ableton and Reason. So everything's all organized. And then we have, I think my microphone is going out. Stupid cables. I really need new cables. They're shorting out. Sorry. Anyway, if you have any extra samples or anything, they're all saved in there, so everything is all self-contained. But for example, this first sound right here is changing a lot, and actually when you look at it, which is down in the second lead, it has quite a few things routing in it. It has the oscillators routing around to the filters and just a bunch of fun stuff, and it really changes the sound of it. If I'm not going to go and delete all these because I don't want to set them back up. It'll only take a second. But if I delete all of the routing really quickly and then replay that sound, it's obviously very it's not nearly as interesting because it's just static. So if we go through and put those back in, it has like that sort of wishy-washy sounding to it, and it just adds a little bit of interest. And like I said, it's little details that really bring a song together. I'm sure most people watching this video know about automation, so I won't really go into that, but automating little things also really helps. For example, like in this little first sound, I have the pitch being bent, and instead of just, if I turn that off, let's see if it works this time. It's obviously it's not nearly as interesting as when I have this pitch bend on. Oop, no, stop. If I have this pitch bend on. Oh, and also in this, something that I discovered that really helps a lot is Like I said, little things. This sub right here is really basic. It's just that on the offbeats, like bub bub bub. But without it, it's really boring without it. So you just add in that simple bub bub, and it fills out the whole track. It gives it like a new dimension. Um, it does a lot, surprisingly, or at least I think so. You may think I'm completely nuts. Yeah, I think that's it in this track. Yeah, that's basically it. I think that's all I really have to show you. Don't ever be afraid to experiment, and I truly mean that. Like, just do something completely crazy. Like, you could come in here and make a new Reason instance. It does take a second to load in everything on this rack, but that's okay. Turn on my piano, put it on lead, and make this go away. Like, let's just deal with Thor because I like Thor. Who doesn't like Thor? Probably a few people. Plug Thor in. You know, like something completely crazy. Like, instead of just having this simple sine wave, like, let's make a multi-oscillator. Now let's not even do that. Let's put in an FM pair and like completely pick random things. Turn the FM to a weird thing. The semi up, the tune down. Another FM pair because that's what I just decided to click on. You know, I mean, it already sounds funky. And let's put in, like, let's say I'm not very comfortable with the state variable filter, so I'll just put this in, turn a few knobs, and, like, you know, really play with them and see where it's going. And let's just try a few filtering things. For example, let's put a Foreman filter in and route those two and make filter 2 go that much into filter 1's input. Actually, let's not even do input because that's what I normally do, which gives you like a slightly Foreman teeth sound. Let's do something different and put it into the resonance. Now, what does that do to it? Okay, so we have that thing going on. Now let's do like LFO1 into filter 1's, or how about filter 2's gender? Because why not, you know? And let's do that. And over on LFO1, I said, so like let's change, now we don't need the keyboard follow on. And let's change the wave, you know, let's make it random. So we have this, but like that could be used for something maybe someday. And it sounds like crap, but I don't know, maybe you would like it for something, I don't know. It could be a sound that you like to use. And actually, most people don't notice this typing on the back, and it's kind of hard to see with all these wires, but if you just make a completely empty rack and start a Thor, or start an instance of Thor, sorry, and read these, they're actually really useful, is something that I've noticed. For example, I got a few like really retro-y sounds. I have over here something. No. If I open this, and, you know, I got like a really retro-y sound, but it actually sounds really cool, and it was, I got the idea from that backside of Thor. It sounds like really oldish sounding, I guess. And going along with like weird sounds, I made this in Ableton. I don't know what it's doing. You know, completely weird sound, but I liked it for what it was doing. If we skip ahead. Oops, sorry. You know, it's completely random. It doesn't sound great at all, but I liked it for what it was doing. I don't know, I just like that sound. Maybe because I put a bunch of shit on it. Sorry, I shouldn't have said bad words. I don't know who's watching this. Another thing is, once you get out of this, for example, we have this weird sounding sound. Let's create just random effects that I'm not super comfortable with. For example, a unison. Well, okay, I'm pretty comfortable with that, but and let's just change it. You know, I mean, I don't know what we're going to come up with. Let's... And one more thing. Let's do a phaser. I love phasers. So actually I have like a pretty cool sounding sound now, and I don't even know what I did. You know, I just clicked random things. So like I said, experimenting is always really great and a fun thing to do, and you learn a lot. Even if you completely copy somebody's song, um, and sort of make it your own, it's a really great learning experience, and you can really learn a lot from it. So I think that's all I have to really ramble about. I kind of had an idea of a more direction for this video to take, but I guess it just became ramblings of me. So yeah, if you have any questions or anything, just post it in the comments, and I can go into more detail into anything that I talked about today. But until then, I hope you guys have a good day, and thanks for watching.